So that song, that's just how it is. Written by David Friedman and Peter Kellogg. And I think of that lyric, and it's not exactly a pick-me-up. It's not overly, oh, that's so positive. No, but it's realistic. It's not reality, but it's realistic in this human experience. And especially in this Easter time. You know, the Easter story is not, woohoo. Oh, it's not peeps. Peeps were just added later to make us not so unhappy about anything else. There's a lot of death and destruction. I remember years ago, we were invited to someone's home to see a preview of The Passion of the Christ when it came out. Almost said the Mel Brooks, but the Mel Gibson, The Passion of the Christ. And we were at a very, very Christian home. And we saw it. And this movie, what it depicted for me was man's inhumanity to man. And afterward, it was 2 hours of beating a man up a hill. And as I said to the producers afterward, I said, if you didn't know about Jesus when you walked in the door, you wouldn't have known that this person was anything special. And they said, but he gave these sermons. I said, so what? Lots of people give sermons. If you don't know them, they don't mean anything. But what I did get out of that was how horrible we can treat each other. And one man was trying to sell the thing and to get big investors. We were not two of them. We were just invited to see it. It was $250,000 a head to invest in this. And one of the men said, but how do we get the word out there about how great, how wonderful Jesus was and the kindness that he did and everything? And I said, well, why don't we just be kind to each other? And they looked at me like I had two heads. Like I was talking in a foreign language. And it's like, just be the example rather than thinking he's the example. He was very clear. He said, the Father within me that does the works, but it's the source within me. It's the God within me that does the works. It is not, quit telling me I'm so great and go ahead and be great yourself. Mm-hmm. Because as long as we keep saying him, 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 we're never going to do it. We're never going to rise up to our own potential of health and well-being. We're never going to do that. And as long as we think it's our neighbor, it's somebody else who's so wonderful. Oh my goodness, that David Friedman, my goodness, what he writes, what he does. And if you think that's so great, then learn how to write a song. You know, a lot of people in this community used to say, oh my goodness, that one sings this and that one sings this. And then a lot of you started singing and found out you're very good singers and you're a very good entertainer. So you found out, oh, it's not just them. And other people, we come here, we get exercise certain muscles, but we don't exercise others. And Jesus kept saying, don't worry about exercising the muscle of surviving on earth so much as exercise the muscle of your trust in your source. So when we see that, we hear a lyric, God ain't kind. God ain't kind. Well, we heard what Doug said this morning, and we heard a lot of things. Well, God ain't nice, I can tell you that. God is not nice. If God were nice, as I like to say, a lot of my enemies would have been smoked down a long time ago. But the problem is, I'd have been smoked down by a few of mine. You see, if God were nice, I could have millions of dollars without the consciousness to have them. If God were nice, I could have a lot of things at my convenience without the consciousness to have it, if God were nice. But God is not a person, and God is not my grandmother. My grandmother was nice. And she was called what you would call an enabler. Or in my case, a Leo. Leos tend to be my greatest enablers. And they're very nice to me as a rule. But that does not help me in my faith, in my source. Because a lot of our enablers also think of us as poor things who need our help. Oh, this poor thing needs my help. Well, as long as it's a poor thing, where did they strengthen? The Jesus message was never, there was never a poor thing around him. There was always equals. Everybody around him was an equal. Now that does not make him an object of worship. That makes him a good user of wisdom and a good user of love. And the divine powers of wisdom in the solar plexus and love in the heart creates not a power but a function, which is discernment. And discernment lets me know how to talk to you in a way that perhaps you could hear this message, and you and you and you and you and you that could hear how strong and smart you are and how vitally alive you are. You.
Yes, me.
Pretty lady in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty man in the front. So, say for you, and, well, you're a pretty lady in the front too. But to realize, and that's why I liked Unity so much. Unity told me I was good. I am good whether you people like me or not. What a relief. Because there's plenty of people who don't like me very much. They don't hate me. They're just not wild about some of my personality aspects. They haven't even met me lately. Some of them judged me from years ago, and rightfully so, quite frankly. And I don't like everybody's personality, but so what? We are all still good in God. Good in our source. Capital G, good. Has no opposite. There is no bad being. We clear on this? There is no being that is bad. Plenty I don't like. There's plenty that I'm afraid of what I think they think. I'm afraid of what I see them do, and that's because I'm still very attached to this flesh. And I'm still very attached to my opinions. But my opinions are really not very valid. Neither are yours. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It doesn't say have an opinion, and the opinion will set you free. It says, and you will know the truth. It also says in the Jesus message, you will do all that I do and even greater than this. What could be greater than any of us could do than have a physical overcoming of a dis-ease? Dis-ease can be physical, it can be mental, it can be financial, it can be harmony. Any one of us could have an overcoming of the dis-ease. I always like to put a hyphen in there so we get it. We're not at ease somewhere in our experience. We're not at ease. And so we're looking. And so on this Palm Sunday, what the Palm Sunday really represents is in the olden days when a new ruler came into town, a new king, a new whatever, they were preceded by a whole lot of servants, and they came in on the best horses and the carriages, and they were surrounded by their armies. What Jesus is said to have done, because I don't know if he did it, but the story still works, the myth still works. He had sent somebody to get him an old donkey, and he rode into town on an old donkey. He didn't come in to overpower anybody. He didn't come in to show how important he was. He didn't need to. He had God. He had his source. He had faith in his source. And so he wasn't worried about the body living or dying. He had faith in spirit. And he listened to that voice that said, do not try to go in as a movie star. Don't go in pretending. Don't wear your most designer robe. Although I think he did. He had the seamless garment, which is supposed to have been the best you could have back then. And so he came into town. Here I am. Here I am once more to celebrate God and my faith in it. Here I am. And it was basically his surrendering. to the potential of physical death. Knowing that, because he had been kind of in hiding, if you read your Bible, as I'm sure all of you do, he had been rather in hiding, and he came out, public eye, down Main Street. Here he comes. And he had 1 week left to inform his up-and-coming licensed teachers, or otherwise called disciples, his licensed Unity teachers, you guys are going to have to be teaching this, and let me show you a few more lessons. And he had the Last Supper with them, and that was fellowship, and it was a time once more to make these men aware that the body doesn't mean anything. That's why in the Last Supper we said, eat this bread, it's my body. What that means is, if my body were so valuable, we would place my body on an altar somewhere. Because that's what you did. Everything that was valuable you put on the altar as praising God. And you could eat the rest of the animal. And the liquid. Drink this. Drink this. But they all drank out of the same chalice. And so what that means is forgiveness. It means unity. It means we are all one because we drink from the same cup. And that is the life that represents. And this represents my blood. The blood is the life within us. And so this unity represents life, and life everlasting, because we are all one. Amongst our many personalities, we're all one. There is only one. But we are spread out in multiple personalities, in multiple thoughts, in multiple directions. And we're all thinking a lot of things. How do we come together in at least one thought? And that's really been my goal since I came here to Unity Center of Norwalk, that night 2004, which was to have us come together in at least one thought. And that one thought is, I am good and cannot not be good. That's always been my main message. I am good and cannot not be good. And that understanding is not based on what others think of me. And it's certainly not based on what I think of you. It's based on a realization of source. I am good and cannot not be good. If we all take that thought with us as we go out these doors today, we can take mountains and toss them into the ocean. We can transform everything in our lives with the realization, I am good and I cannot not be good. We can end fear. Imagine that. We could eradicate fear with the realization of, I am good and cannot not be good. And all it will take is a new thought after a new thought and after a new thought. And we said, where would I get that? Well, I get it from source. And my next thought is always on its way. My next thought is always on its way, following the current thought. And so if I wonder, where am I going to get this? Good, from my next thought. It's on its way. And this thought I have now, it's a good thought. And if I don't know how it's a good thought, then I ask Spirit, how is this a good thought? And Spirit will guide me, not as a person, but as a voice. At least I have that voice. I've been listening to it for years. It's never misguided me. It's never guided me to hurt myself or another human being. It's never, excuse me, it's never guided me to embarrass myself or shame myself or tell me I am lacking in any way. It never says you should. It always says you could. Shawn, if you want to experience love, then this is what you think. Shawn, if you want to experience peace and joy, then this is what you think. This is what you say. This is what you do. For you, Shawn, it's not for what everybody will do, but it's for what you will do. And it's like, oh, it's that simple. Yes, Shawn, it's that simple. But not everybody wants to listen to that voice. Because too many of us are busy telling God. Telling Spirit, Spirit, this is awful. Fix it. Well, now you've just tried to convince Spirit that this is awful. We don't want Spirit to agree with us. We don't want our highest thinking to agree that this is awful. We want to find the love in it. We want to find the peace in it, the joy in it. As I said a few weeks ago, my friend Russell said to me that many people want to serve God, but only in an advisory position. Many of us, we don't want to hear what God has to say, what truth has to say, the wisdom of the ages have to say. We want, no, God, this stinks, this is lousy, this one's a thief, this one's a liar, this one's hurting me, and this, you know, and just huff down the street. And in our cars, and into our Alexas, and our, and to realize, oh, I haven't asked what this means. I haven't asked what to think about this. I haven't asked today. And I've gotten really, really good about asking. Because when I start telling, I gotta tell you, I get really rattled. When I start trying to convince myself of what's wrong, what's bad, what's awful, what I should be afraid of, my life gets harder. And I gain more weight. And I have less money. And I have fewer friends. Because I don't trust anybody anymore, because I've been telling myself how I am betrayed in life. And so who would want to hang out with me if I'm thinking you're out to get me? And it gets lonelier and tireder and sadder. And so I have to go within repeatedly, many, many, many times a day and say, Spirit, tell me what to think about this. I'm rattled by this. I have a sensation here, I have a sensation here. Tell me what to think about this before I start telling myself a story. This person just said this to me. This was just on TV. This was just, Spirit, tell me what to think about this. I need to know the truth. Where is the good in this? Rather than telling Spirit where the bad is. Spirit, what's the good in this? How am I loved in this? I'm willing to know. How can I experience love in this situation? I've had a couple of them in the past couple of weeks. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I haven't asked. Because I was busy being righteous. I need to know. Rather than spread vitriolic, I think that's the right word for that, words on Facebook. Rather than spreading my angry news, my angry opinions out into the world over lunch, I need to ask. Because I am certain actually, it is safe to assume that love is everywhere. Love is absolutely everywhere. And I'm wiser to assume it. I don't understand what love is, but I still think it's safe to assume. If God is love, then how could love be absent in this situation or this situation? Just because I'm experiencing fear, that's because I told myself to. I told myself I should be afraid. I told myself I should be angry. I told myself I should gossip and criticize about this one and this one and this one, because that'll make me safe. And of course it never does. But nevertheless. So now I have to tell myself, pray. Go within and ask. Ask, what's the reality here? Because I do know that the reality has to be love. And the awareness of it is on its way. The awareness of love is on its way with the next thought. Because I just asked. That's how I know. And I also want to offer this to everybody. Ask. And even if you don't hear it right away, assume you have been answered. Assume that if you went within and you asked where the love is, just assume you have been answered, and that answer will reveal itself at just the right time. And the right time is when you need it. You will not be treated intellectually to spirit. Do not try to intellectualize your spiritual books. You can sit down and you can memorize this book, and it will only be to your detriment. You can memorize all this stuff. You can memorize all Charles Fillmore, Myrtle Fillmore. You can memorize all Wayne Dwyer and Abraham Hicks. You can memorize it. You can quote it, chapter and verse. You can explain it, but if you're not experiencing it, it's of no use to you. You can help every neighbor on your block, but if you personally are not experiencing it, it's worthless information to you. You can explain spirit till the day you die, but if you haven't experienced spirit, it has been worthless to you. You can memorize the big book of AA, of NA, of Al-Anon, but if you do not experience the teachings, faith without works is dead, I believe the AA book says. I'm sure it says it elsewhere. You can memorize A Course in Miracles and quote it chapter and verse. But if you have not experienced forgiveness, it's worthless to you. You can lay hands on and heal so many people, but if you personally do not give yourself a healing, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, it's worthless information to you. That was what Jesus was trying to tell us. I have experienced it. I have experienced forgiveness. I have experienced love. I have experienced generosity. I have experienced connection and fellowship. I have experienced it. And so I'm here to tell you that it is possible. And I will tell you as a Shawn, that's what I am, I'm a Shawn. Beloved child of God. I have experienced the overcoming, the instantaneous. I have had instantaneous healings physically. I have had harmonious healings repeatedly because I fall out of favor in my mind and I have to go back and have another one. But I go back because I know it's possible. I have overcome mental and emotional, and I have had disabilities, and I have had healings. Sometimes instantaneous, and sometimes I had to work so hard for them. But I worked so hard because I knew the next thought was on its way. And so, today, now, look within and you ask, Spirit, tell me what Shawn is saying, because I don't have a clue. Tell me how what Shawn is saying today applies to me, that I may experience what he's talking about for myself. I am willing to be the example of healing, the example of overcoming, and the example of having a faith that there is so much good here, and there is even more good on its way. So it is. Thank you.
Thank you.